Hombre, los depósitos de cosas
Well,
específicas,
deposits of specific things occur fairly frequently in daily life.
pero los que sí son
However,
importantes en la vida
the
económica
deposits which
real
are truly
son los
significant
depósitos de
in
bienes
real economic
fungibles.
life
Y a los
are
depósitos de
deposits of
bienes
fungible
fungibles
goods.
se les denomina tradicionalmente
Traditionally, theorists have referred to deposits of fungible goods as irregular deposits.
Son depósitos
They are deposits like the ones we have just described, in which we hand over fungible goods of a certain quantity and quality with instructions to the depository who receives them to guard and keep them and return them to us whenever we ask for them.
cualquier momento.
Therefore, in this sense, they are always demand or sight deposits.
A la vista.
So, in the deposit of a fungible good, the availability of the thing is not lost. Instead, the item always remains entirely at the disposal of the depositor. The only difference is that because the good is fungible, what remains constantly at the disposal of the depositor are not the specific things, the molecules of oil deposited, the precise grains, if each could be identified, of wheat placed in the silo, nor the numbered bills deposited. What must be kept and safeguarded is the equivalent in quantity and quality, the tantundum, to what was deposited. I am going away on vacation, and I see a possibility the cooking oil will go bad, and if I have to come back in a hurry, I will need it. So, ding dong, I ring the neighbour's doorbell and ask her, "Dear neighbour, could you keep this litre of carbonel oil for me?" And my neighbour says, "Sure, I have room in the pantry." "Thank you. Please hold on to it for me, because I don't know if I'm going to be gone a month or if I'll need it tomorrow. Whenever I come back, I'll ask you for it." "So, you'll keep it for me?" "Yes." And the neighbour takes the oil and goes to her pantry, where she has another 4 bottles of oil of the same brand and quality. And she sets down the 5th. Well, 2 days later, I have to rush back. And I say, "Hi, I need something to eat. Can you give me back the oil I deposited with you for safekeeping?" The neighbour goes to her pantry, and of the 5 bottles there, she picks up the 1st, which is not the 5th, the precise bottle left with her, but the first one she sees, which is the same. And she returns it to me. She gives it to me, and I say, "Ah, fantastic." What is taken into account is the equivalent in quantity and quality to what was deposited. Or, imagine I am a small child, and I say to my mother, "Hold these 10 euros for me, Mum." And suddenly, the next day or 2 days later, I feel like buying some candy, and I am walking down the street with my mum. "Hey, Mum, will you give me back the 10 euros I gave you to keep for me?" Well, Mum opens her purse and takes out 2 5-euro bills. Not the 10 euros originally deposited, but the equivalent in quantity and quality. And with that, I buy my candy and consider myself repaid. The only difference in the case of a deposit of fungible goods is that what must be kept and safeguarded at all times are not the specific individual things received, but the equivalent in quantity and quality. The depositories of fungible goods vary according to the fungible good in question. For example, when wheat is harvested, farmers benefit if they each deposit their wheat, assuming it is similar in quality to other wheat in the area, in a joint storehouse called a silo. A farmer deposits so many quintals of wheat, and the depository, the owner of the silo, gives him a deposit receipt. Joe Blow has handed over to me so many quintals, and mixes the wheat with that of another farmer, and so on. In the end, all the farmers have placed their wheat in the silo, where it is mixed with other wheat and indistinguishable from it. The moment they want to withdraw it, they need only present the deposit receipt or certificate. A huge faucet-like device is turned on, and wheat comes out, until the quantity in kilos coincides with that of the original deposit. No one bothers to check, "Hey, this grain which you are returning to me is not the same grain I deposited with you." Since it is a fungible good, the obligations of the silo owner is to safeguard everyone's wheat, to protect it from the wind, rain, mold, etc., and, whenever asked, to return the equivalent in quantity and quality, but not the same specific grains. Also, in large areas of Spain and in many other countries, in North Africa, etc., olive groves are planted, and the different farmers, cooperatives, etc., deposit the oil in tanks at an oil mill. So I deposit so many hectolitres of oil at the oil mill, and my neighbour, a farmer, deposits a similar amount, and so on. The owner of the mill, who provides the service of custody and safekeeping, gives each of us a deposit receipt or certificate, which indicates the ownership of each farmer by name of the quantity of oil deposited. The moment either of us decides to withdraw what we handed over for safekeeping, it will be returned to our satisfaction if we receive the equivalent in quantity and quality. The oil faucet is turned on, and so many litres come out. And no one is crazy enough to say, "Hey, I noticed that these molecules of oil are not the ones I originally deposited." For when a fungible good is deposited, the units deposited are mixed with others and become indistinguishable from them, whether they are grains of wheat, molecules of oil, or euros of money. The depository, whether the silo owner, the oil mill owner, or the banker who receives money at sight, carries out his function, the safekeeping command, if at all times he keeps the equivalent in quantity and quality available to the depositor, and returns it the moment he is asked. Not the specific units, but the equivalent in quantity and quality. Why is this called an irregular deposit? Traditionally, when the deposit was explained in law school, it was said that in the deposit of a specific thing, I hand over a painting to you so that you will safeguard it for me, but I do not hand over ownership of it to you. Obviously, you are just the one who is going to keep or safeguard the painting, but I am still its owner. The owner of some of the paintings in the Thyssen Museum is the Baroness, though they are on deposit there. In contrast, in the case of an irregular deposit, treatise writers, who were punctilious people used to splitting hairs, said, well, since here the individual units are mixed together and become indistinguishable from each other, one could consider that the ownership of the specific molecules, of the specific grains, or of the specific bills is transferred to the depository, because he is not obliged to return those specific things, but other equivalent things. This is a true but relatively unimportant observation, for in fact ownership is not transferred here either. Ownership in the case of a fungible good is defined in the abstract. As with all fungible goods, the deposit of a good of a certain quantity and quality, whether oil, wheat or money, and that definition of ownership in terms of quantity and quality is in the abstract, does not involve a transfer of ownership. Instead, the good is simply handed over with the safekeeping obligation, and the depository must constantly keep the entire tantundum, the equivalent in quantity and quality, in favour of the depositor. This fine distinction, that in the deposit of a fungible good, because the specific things or elements are indistinguishable from each other, ownership appears to be transferred, disconcerted many writers, and led them to describe the deposit as irregular. For practical purposes, the term acquired general usage, and whenever you read irregular deposit, you must simply understand that it refers to a deposit of a fungible good. Ownership is not transferred. The depositor continues to have the availability, and the obligation of the depository is the same as in any deposit. Custody and safekeeping like a good paterfamilias, and the return the moment it is requested. Thus the deposit is, at sight, of the equivalent in quantity and quality to what was deposited.